Welcome to Words of Wisdom from Kick-Ass Women.
Stories and advice about moving forward, punching through that glass ceiling, pushing harder, and blazing trails from women we really admire.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Words of Wisdom from Kick-Ass Women. I am Liz Brohan. I'm so glad you're with us today. Unfortunately, Mary Olivieri cannot be with us. She's just dealing with life stuff. So we just want her to know our heart is with her. But we're going to continue on today, and I'll bring her up to speed on all of this because this is going to be a good one. You know, what we do here is we like to tell the truth. We like to break the rules. And of course, you know, along the way, we like to redefine what it means to be powerful. And we're going to do that today. In fact, I think we're going to burn the whole rule book right down to the ground.
Tear it apart with our fangs.
There we go. See, she just kind of chimed in with what we're going to talk about today, ladies. Oh, my God. So anyway, boy, now I'm like losing it. We're going to talk about female rage today. Now, how about that for a topic, right? And there's no better person in the world to talk to about this issue but our dearest new best friend, Sam Beck-Bessinger. Let me then say hello, Sam.
Hi. It's so funny. I mean, that makes me sound like I'm just a really angry person, which is, it's been an experience to access my own anger. But I'm so delighted.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would describe you as an angry person. I think it's just your wild imagination that helps us bring everything crystal clear, that makes everybody just love to talk about you and talk with you and read your books. So let me tell you all a little bit about Sam really quick, okay? So Sam Beck-Bessinger is the best-selling author of the book, Manage Your Finances Like a Fucking Grown-Up. Whenever I say that title, I always want to add the word already at the end of it. You know, manage your finances like a fucking grown-up already.
I once had a reader come up to me saying, what's the name of that book that you wrote? Is it Get Your Shit Together, You Dumb Bitch?
Yeah, that one too. I like them both. So in addition to that, you know, Sam is also a creative TV writer. She's really a creative powerhouse. She has a new book coming out very soon called Femme Feral. And this book is why she said the word fang right off the bat, because it is about a perimenopausal werewolf story. Wow. How about that? Yeah. Okay. Well, let's start there. Welcome again.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, so the book is out on the 14th, which is so soon now. And yeah, I think you gave a beautiful introduction. It's the story of a woman who thinks she's going through perimenopause, but really she's turning into a werewolf. And it is absolutely a story about women's rage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to be honest, I never even heard the term perimenopausal before. It was kind of new to me, or I don't know if it's kind of a new kind of medical thing going on. But I do think the whole idea of menopause and werewolves is the perfect metaphor.
Yeah, it's lunar cycles, you have new body hair. Yeah, and I mean, it's the same, right? Like, I think that for me, at least, growing up, and I think things have finally started to shift, but really only in the last couple of years. But when I was growing up, this was just something that was not spoken about at all. The menopause wasn't mentioned at all.
Never.
Or if it was mentioned, you'd get like male stand-up comedians in the 90s. That's what I remember, making these horrible, horrible jokes about these shrill shrews who would just become so unreasonable and hot flushes. That was the only thing. And I think it's in the last couple of years, we finally started to talk about the fact that this is a shift that happens to us. It happens psychologically, it happens socially, it happens biologically. It upends our life in ways that can be really disruptive and really powerful. And it's not something, I mean, one of the big things that I hadn't realized until I got closer to 40 is it can be years. It can be an average of like 6 to 8 years of hormonal disruption before menopause, which means, I thought about like, this is something I worry about when I'm sort of in my 50s, but for most of us, it's our late 30s, early 40s, things start to happen. And we didn't have words for this growing up. We didn't have language for this. And we certainly even today do not have much help.
No, I feel exactly the same way. I grew up in the 70s. And I'm going to reference a show that might not mean a lot to you, but it was called All in the Family. It was a big, big, big hit here in the States. And I remember, the female lead on that show was an older woman, and they did an episode where they showed her going through menopause. She had these moments of rage. She had these moments where she was crying. She had these moments where she was mean when she wasn't a mean person. Her personality changed. And I got to be honest, that episode has stayed with me my entire life, but it was the only time throughout anything where anybody talked about this issue. So that it's finally coming to light and that you're really turning a creative eye on it is amazing. Well, I'll tell you the other thing that I always thought about this issue is that, they wanted women to be quiet about it because our anger and our mood swings are not supposed to be public, and they're supposed to be something that we can keep under control, which is absolutely ludicrous.
Absolutely. And I think that, I feel like I grew up in a generation that was so lucky on one hand, because we were a generation told from a career perspective, we could have everything. We were a generation, like I have had opportunities from a career perspective that I wish my mum had, but what we weren't told was that having it all just actually meant doing it all. And now that, I refer to myself, I'm like an elder millennial or a geriatric millennial. And now that we're hitting this age, the thing is as well, so many of us are in positions of power and of visibility. We're on the one hand, we're at the strongest times of our lives we've ever been. And it feels so scary in this moment to show weakness, to show, I'm a person, I'm having this experience. And because it is a female experience, it is still something that's taboo and we feel ashamed of. And so we feel this pressure to, pretend that we're all fine, because success, our image of success when we were growing up, and I still think this is true to some extent, although it's, thankfully changing, but so slowly, is still, to be powerful means to do it like a man. And we can't. And that's the beauty of this age. And I think about this as being the moment where all of our coping mechanisms fail, all of the ways that we've been able to repress all the kind of uglier things or more honest things or less acceptable things. We can't do that anymore. And it's this beautiful reckoning, I think.
Totally agree with you. I do feel as though we're kind of shaking off the do it like a man sort of aspect of that, although that is definitely how I started my career, dressing for success, dressing in menswear, for God's sakes. But that whole idea that you just mentioned about, we have to be able to have it all, which is, God, just more work, please, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think that's gone away.
No.
I think we're all still trying to, prove to the world that we can, do a lot more than anybody thinks we can do. And we can, but do we really have to? Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I think we can for a while. And that's the kind of terrifying thing is that, so the main character of this novel, Femme Feral, she is one of these people who, she's managed for years. She has been, not the perfect, no one is perfect, but she's really tried to be the perfect employee, the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect person. And she's operating on so many levels, and she's she's held it together for a very long time, and she's hyper functioned, and she has this infinite to-do list in her brain. That's been the consequence of this. And the thing is, I think for a while you can get away with that, but you can't do that forever. And doing that has consequences, and things get suppressed, and things get ignored, and things get pushed away. And usually the things that are being ignored and pushed away, I think, are us, like what we actually want underneath all the things we're doing for other people and all the roles that we're playing.
Yes.
And what's so beautiful about, I think, about this age is, for me, this book kind of came out of a bit of a breakdown for me, where I felt like I'd been this kind of person. I'd been hyper functioning. And what was so beautiful about getting to a moment where I just couldn't anymore, even if I wanted to, was it finally forced me to stop and to look at all the things I had been, the uglier things and the more vulnerable things that I had been avoiding in working so hard to play all these other roles for so many people.
So really, what you're describing here is what happens when the good girl breaks, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
the good girl goes rabid.
Yeah, she's got to go rabid. And that's what you love to write about, right? You just kind of really love to write about things that are terrifying yet real.
Yeah. Well, I started this saying, it's the funny thing is I never, for most of my life, like I never felt or never thought of myself as an angry person. I think if anything, I felt like I was, when I started thinking about the idea for this book, it really came out of a curiosity about the fact that I felt unable to feel anger. It felt like, I made it through the first almost 40 years of my life and never really losing my shit at anyone, never really being angry.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, I found my anger, or rather, I feel like my anger found me. And I realized, it's been somewhere all these years where I had no place for it, because as women, we're also socialized out of recognizing our own anger because it's not acceptable for us. But it goes somewhere, it sits somewhere, and it waits somewhere. And the metaphor was, what if it curdled into a creature while it was sitting there and being ignored?
See, it is like a creature, from the Black Lagoon, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
and there were times, I was just thinking back, there were times when I had these weird outbursts, right? Whether it was, at work or maybe in front of my family.
Yeah.
And now I've come to realize it was because I was going through menopause. It wasn't because I was some unstable, crazy woman.
Yeah.
So now you're kind of creating a whole new genre then, right? Or, it's not really that well known, this whole idea of like feminist horror.
Well, I feel like I'm joining a wave of beautiful books that are coming out at the moment. And I grew up, I've been a horror junkie since I was a child.
I'm a big Stephen King fan.
Yeah, same. I was weaned on Stephen King. My mum is a huge Stephen King fan. And I started reading Stephen King. I basically, as a child, I read through all of the Goosebumps books in our school library. And then librarians are the greatest people on this planet. And my very sensitive, intuitive librarian realized I was the kind of kid who needed to go to the adult horror section. So at about age 12, she granted me access to the candy store.
Wow.
And I got into Dean Koontz and Stephen King. And that's shaped my love of stories and my way of thinking about stories. But, as much as I love those writers, I feel like when I was growing up, horror was such a genre written by men mostly, and for a very particular kind of man, like white man. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's really changed over the last kind of decade. And it's been so beautiful to see this wave of incredible female and queer authors from all sorts of backgrounds. And it feels really exciting to be kind of, publishing this book with all of these incredible other writers. I hadn't read. I think werewolves are maybe also having a little bit of a moment, which is great.
Yes.
I hadn't read a perimenopausal werewolf.
No, I think this is completely unique and, like I said, right on target. I also wanted to talk about some of the things that you did when you were researching the book. I know you talked with, all kinds of different people, some psychologists, right? And maybe even someone who was writing about stalking.
Yeah. So
am I getting that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, so I for me, I feel like I write about horrors, right? Which means that the real world is full of horrors. It's full of terrible, terrible things.
True.
And I think writing horror is my way of metabolizing those feelings to some extent. And the most horrifying things in this book are not werewolves and monsters and demons, but they're really ugly, very true things. And so my researching this book took me down some kind of really strange and dark rabbit holes. And so I spoke to I spoke to a few people who work around stalking as an issue. There's a subplot in this book about stalking. I spoke to people on both sides of that. So I spoke to people who work with victims of stalking. And I also had long conversations with psychologists who work with stalkers, with perpetrators of stalking, because I also really wanted to understand the mindset and the motivations. And that was, was deeply, deeply interesting. And I mean, there were some other strange people.
Well, I have to mention one for sure. And okay, so I know Taylor Swift listens to this podcast. So Taylor, you might want to cover your ears for a minute. But didn't you meet a woman, or was she writing about a serial killer of cats?
Oh, it's even better than that.
Oh, good. Tell us everything.
She is a cat serial killer vigilante, real life. It's honestly the most fascinating woman I've ever met in my entire life. So she runs an organization in South London called Slain. And she has it's called the South London Animal Investigation Network. That's what it's short for. And she has devoted her life to catching a very real serial killer of cats. So when I say cat serial killer, I feel like I have to specify not a cat who's a serial killer. All cats are already serial killers. This is a human person who has killed a number of cats in South London. And there's actually been a few serial killers of cats around the UK over the years. And there's been one working around Croydon for. Are
they working with cults? Or
no?
Well, I mean, really just don't like cats.
They're not entirely sure, but they believe actually that he targets families who have small children who also have cats, and their theory is that it's targeted at the children, not at the cats. And I'm not going to get too into it. It's very dark.
That's so creepy.
Yeah, it's really creepy. And I mean, there's a lot of dead cats in this book. I feel like I have to warn people. But I feel like I have to defend myself and say that I have a cat. I am a cat lady, 100%. My cat Digby is the love of my life. And I feel like I have her kill cats in the book because it's sort of the worst thing I can imagine to some extent.
No kidding.
Yeah, because animals are innocent. Yeah.
So there's a ton of weirdness, right? That you like to write about. I think Hunter Thompson once said, "It never got weird enough for me." I don't necessarily believe that, but okay. But I also know that you teach weirdness as part of your creative writing class, right?
I do. Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I'd love to sort of claim that as, I'm someone who teaches weirdness. I think I'm going to change my business card. I'm a weirdness teacher.
It's a great tagline.
It's a great tagline. Yeah, so I my favorite job that I have is that I teach creative writing at Bath Spa University on their master's program. And, I think specifically today when we're all, plugged into these algorithms that feed things into our brains all the time. And increasingly, when people are kind of having words written for them off out of these plagiarism machines of large language models.
Oh, I love that.
I feel like so much of my job as someone teaching creative writing is teaching people to just tap into their own very human innate weirdness. And because weirdness is another word for originality, right?
Yes.
And I mean, for me, writing is the most fun thing that I do, because writing is how I think, right? And for me, it's kind of, I really love to talk about practices that help you to go spelunking into the cave system of your unconscious mind, basically.
Nice.
Yeah, I believe that most art comes out of us. Most art that feels true comes out of us and comes out of these places, these less explored places in ourselves. And what's really fun for me about teaching creative writing is, I don't really feel it's about teaching craft. I think anyone can learn about craft, and there's incredible craft lectures all over the internet already. I love Brandon Sanderson's, the ones that I often recommend to my students. But, it's more, I think that the job is the practice of learning to go spelunking in your own mind. And what are the practices? For me, it's a lot of notebooking. Like I get my students to do a lot of observing, training them to observe things in the world, and just training them to go and talk to people.
Think about all the weird moments we've all experienced in our lives, whether we caused them or the environment caused them. So it's a great thing to kind of tap into. And I love that you said it really generates, originality. Yeah. I think that's awesome. So as long as we're on this topic of kind of writing techniques and things like that, I know that the other thing that you do quite a bit is you turn the whole idea of, well, that's too bad, into, well, that's really data. Right? Can we talk about that for a minute? What does that mean?
I mean, that's a great way of putting it. I mean, I think that there's you can use everything. You can use everything, and you should use everything. I feel like most of what comes out of my work my favorite parts of my work are never things I've invented. They're usually things I've collected from the world, the inciting incident of this novel, which is a woman who's been doing the job of CEO, but she doesn't have the job role of CEO. But she's been doing that job for years. And the joke is, well, she's the person who really keeps things running around here. But she doesn't have the recognition, or she doesn't have the money, the pay for doing that job. And then, one day she expects to be promoted to CEO, but then one day in front of the whole company, it's announced that they're hiring a complete outsider.
Of course.
Like that's something that just happened in my life not to me, but to someone that I knew. And I stole so much of my friends' experiences. Honestly, there's a saying I love, which is that being friends with a writer is like hugging a pickpocket. And I'm a terrible thief. Like I really wrote this book. I found my rage while I was writing this book, and so much of what I was thinking about while I was writing it was how angry I was about what was happening to my very dearest friends around the stage. And I tried to put as much of that into this book as I could.
Well, and I can tell that feels heartbreaking, but you also tend to do it with just a great deal of humor. You kind of are really good at blending humor and horror, and I guess there's always humorous moments in the things that are most horrible. I know, for example, that, my dad died on Christmas Day, and I laughed out loud. And I know that sounds terrible, but he was this big showman. He loved the spotlight. He was just one of those creative guys. And I thought, oh, you did this on purpose.
Yeah,
so
he wanted a bit of a...
Yeah, so that now Christmas is really just about Dad. Dad dying.
He wanted to make it all about him. Classic. Yeah. I mean, when my dad died, Yeah, it's great. When my dad died, they accidentally phoned the wrong daughter, and some poor other woman whose dad had not died got a phone call that her dad had died, and we did not get the phone call. And then my dad was in a step-down facility coming out of hospital when he passed, and it's terrible, but my mom went to visit him for visiting hours and arrived, and they said, "Oh, you've arrived. Do you want to see the body?" And
what?
Now I find that hilarious. Obviously, at the time, it was deeply devastating. But I think that this is the thing: is that I feel like horror and humor are separated by a hair. There are two sides of the same thing, because the thing that's in the middle is taboo. The thing that they have in common when you are talking about something hilarious or something frightening is it's too terrible for you to accept as part of your reality. And the real world is so full both of things that are really deeply funny and really deeply horrifying. And they live they live intertwined. And I don't know, this also might just be my South Africanness. Like I think South Africans by nature have a very dark sense of humor.
Well, tell us about that for a minute. So tell us a little bit about your background. You grew up in South Africa?
Yes, I was born in the late 80s, which was the dying days of apartheid South Africa. And my worldview has been absolutely shaped by that fact. So I moved to the UK. I now live in London, and I moved here 6 years ago. So I lived most of my life in South Africa, apart from a very brief year where I lived in between San Francisco and a boyfriend's couch in New York City.
Those are some big changes.
Yeah. But I feel utterly South African. And, I think it was an incredible time to be in South Africa because, it felt like such a moment of moral reckoning in the world. And being a white South African, it was just this incredible moment of grace, I think, for white South Africans, and a moment of incredible hope, I think. We felt like we were living in the birth of a new country, and we felt so optimistic. And, it hasn't been that simple a story. But it remains, it's very much still my home, and it's very much still the country that has shaped my entire view of the world.
And well, no kidding. And everything that it's been through and, still goes through is, to have lived through it has to be something that you tap into, quite honestly, in your writing.
Well, I mean, it's such an incredibly violent country, I think, is something that's come through, because you can't talk about rage without talking about violence. And it's violent because its history is violent, right? Like it was founded on, as a nation, was founded on a system of colonialization and then a system of apartheid.
Well, I think we share that in common.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. And I think as, with being a white South African in America, there was so much that felt deeply familiar. And recognizable. And, sorry about Elon Musk. We have also sent some of our worst people to you who are now very really shaping your politics. Sorry about that.
No, yeah, we're getting through it. We'll get through it.
Yeah, I hope so.
I do too.
Yeah. But everyone, all the men in my family, we had conscription for white South Africans. So all the men in my family had been had fought for the South African National Defence Force, which was the military arm of the apartheid government. And they had all perpetrated terrible atrocities and had been enforcers of this incredibly violent state. And, that violence lives in families, it lives in the communities, and it reverberates through generations. It's violence, the violence of the oppressors, and we were definitely the oppressors, but the violence, it's uncontrolled. Like it goes out and it ricochets across everything, and it affects, it obviously affects the people that we were oppressing far more. but and it remains a very violent country, and a country that is still trying to grapple with its violence. And that is expressed as gender-based violence. It's expressed as domestic violence. It's expressed as violence in every level of society. And we're still very much trying to figure out what to do with that and how to heal from that. And it's hard.
It's very hard, but it also explains a lot about what's in your book, because the women in this book, they display anger or show anger in very different ways. A lot of like what you were just talking about. So yeah, tell us about these other women. And
I really wanted to show a kaleidoscope of different kinds of characters that have a different relationship with their rage. So Ellie, the main character, is someone who I think like me, has been so alienated from her own anger for so long, she doesn't even know it's there. She believes she's not an angry person, but actually she is a very angry person. But she has suppressed that rage until it's curdled into this, bloodthirsty beast that comes roaring out of her once a month. But, there are these other characters. So there's Brenda, who she was my favorite character to write. She's very much a foil to Ellie. So Brenda is a woman in her 80s, and she has absolutely no interest in repressing any of her anger. Her anger is right there on the surface. And she's a character who, I guess, like my cat serial killer vigilante, she is hunting the person who killed her cat all across London. She's very single-minded. And she's really underestimated. People really underestimate her because she's a woman in her 80s. She's losing her eyesight. And she really turns that into a superpower because she's often overlooked, which means she's able to talk her way into places she absolutely shouldn't be. And she's got a lot of time on her hands, and she's deeply determined.
So it's very purposeful, and it's directed at injustice.
Exactly. And she turns out to be a really formidable Van Helsing type character.
Makes her a superhero.
Exactly.
With superpowers.
Yeah. And I think for me, I think she was a great exploration of how, as you say, rage can be a force for justice, and rage can be an expression of love, and rage can be a force that changes the world if it's directed somewhere, if it's given a purpose. So she was really fun for me to write, even though she's also very crotchety, which I also kind of really enjoyed. Her rage is right there. But there are all these other characters. There's Paige, who is her 20-year-old daughter, who's Ellie's 20-year-old daughter, the main character. And I think with her, what I was exploring were kind of the roots of repression for many young women, and how many young women should be much angrier than they are. And she's dealing with those early experiences that are far too familiar with for many young women. I won't give away too much of that part of the plot.
No, but you're hitting on something that I think our listening audience is going to completely relate to. I mean, Gen Z, these young women, they are mad, and they have a right to be mad.
Absolutely. I feel like at this time in my life, I'm learning so much from women who are older and from women who are younger than me.
Yes, me too.
It's magic. Yeah, I feel like Gen Zs particularly, they just, they're not having it, They're not having this kind of repression. And I wish that I had more of that energy when I was their age. I'm learning so much from them.
Oh, no kidding. Absolutely. I started learning from your generation, the millennial generation, in the workspace where they taught us that, all the bullshit I grew up with wasn't going to cut it anymore, and that they really needed a life outside of the office. And so I feel like they changed maybe not just corporate America, but, the global look at corporate work. And now we've got, Gen Z helping us try to figure out and fix all the stuff that we've completely screwed up. So
well, I feel like your generation had to crash into those rooms. We could only get through those doors because you had crashed your way in there. And I do think, as much as I feel deeply troubled by many things in the world today, but I think that some of this comes from my experience of having been born at the time I was, as apartheid South Africa was ending, is I do feel still hope for the long arc of the world. Like, I know that for myself, I have had opportunities and chances and choices and rights and freedoms that all of my ancestors, my women ancestors particularly, did not have and would have been so grateful for. And I feel so much like, so in South African culture, there's this idea that every family has a family dreamer, and that person carries the responsibility of speaking to and for the ancestors. And, I feel like this is quite woo, but I feel like I write for my mum, and I write for her mum, and I write for her mother because they couldn't.
So you're the torch bearer.
Yeah. But I'm carrying their voices. This isn't just my voice.
And you're amplifying their voices. Now, I think, first of all, that's a beautiful sentiment. And I'm glad that you have chosen this path and that you do it so well.
It chooses you.
Oh, well, I'm glad you were chosen. Yeah. And so as we get back to this book, because I hope everybody picks up a copy of Femme Feral, if there was one or two big things you would want us all to take away after reading this book, what would it be?
I suppose an invitation to ask yourself, I guess, if there are things that you should be angrier about that you are not letting yourself be angry about, and what it might look like if you danced with your beast a little bit.
Oh, I love that. All right, everybody, you heard it. We need to go dance with our beast. Well, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. This was such a wild and great conversation. I mean, honestly, I really, really had a great time. I'm sure our listeners did too. And I wish you major success with this book. It just sounds astonishing.
Thank you so much. What a great chat.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And so everyone, please pick up a copy of Femme Feral. And if you're like me and you really loved this episode, let's share it with our friends, okay? Because there was a lot in here to unpack and a lot of great stuff to share and talk about with one another. And until next time, I hope you'll become a listener and rate us and give us a review. And we will see you next time right back here. In the meantime, go be kick-ass.